about this new Maxx C. So like, I might have jumped the gun a little bit, right? Because we had the reveal of Molchummy Purulia, which draws cards whenever you summon something from the hand. And I was like, oh my god, this is it. They're finally making a new Maxx C. And I kind of jumped the gun, and then I was like, oh my god, they dropped a ban list and they didn't ban Maxx C, even though they dropped Molchummy Purulia already. Oh my god, they're never going to ban Maxx C. And then recently they recently revealed a different Molchummy that is a much more obvious replacement for Maxx C. And at this point, I'm kind of convinced that it's inevitable that Maxx C is getting banned. Is it copium mode again? Am I coping? Maybe, but I don't know. So let me go fetch the card and we're just gonna look at it together. Here it is. So this is the card right here. Let me put this in full mode like this. And we can zoom in a little bit here. We'll still be able to read the card. Beautiful website, by the way. Shout out to DK for that. But here's the card. Molchummy FUWAROSS, or FUWAROSS. I don't know exactly how we're going to say it. But yeah, it's very cute, for one. Artwork, adorable, right? Love it. I like it even more than Purulia, actually. I like this artwork a lot. It's really, really good. Yeah, so Konami have revealed the second Molcharmy, the second addition to the Molcharmy deck type, releasing in Rage of the Abyss later this month. Check it out below. Let us know your totally reasonable takes on the card in the comments below. So I've seen a lot of discussion about this card from TCG people that are like, oh my god, oh no, we're gonna have Maxx C in our format, oh no. And meanwhile, I'm out here like, yes, a Maxx C replacement! It's finally over! Like, literally opposite reaction of TCG players for me, personally. I'm like, oh my god, Master Duel is actually going to be a good game? No way! So guys, let's read this Maxx 3, the third iteration of a Maxx C type card together. So it's a level 4 Wind, Winged Beast effect monster, 100 attack, 600 defense. So even a small, they even nerfed the attack on your Maxx C, which kind of, I don't know about that. I think they should have left it at 500, but whatever. If you control no cards, quick effect, you can discard this card, apply these effects this turn. Each time your opponent special summons a monster from the deck and or extra deck, immediately draw one card. Once during the end phase, if the number of cards in your hand is more than the number of cards your opponent controls plus 6. So for example, if your opponent controls one monster and you have 8 cards in hand, shuffle back one card into the deck so that you have 7 cards in hand. You can have as many cards in your hand as your opponent controls plus 6. Yeah, so basically this card sucks going first. It also says that you can only activate one other Molchummy monster effect the turn you activate this effect. So basically, if they were to Ash this, you could activate it again. If you have 2 in hand, I believe you can stack this. So you can stack the effect, but you can never use this card to insulate yourself going first after you already set up your board, unless you have no monsters on field. Like, you know, decks that can run Gamma oftentimes have ways of playing and having moments in their opponent's turn, like on turn 2, where they have no monsters on field. Honestly, Centurion's an example of that, actually. There are scenarios where you could set that up. But for the most part, you'll almost never activate this, other than if you're going second. You can also stack it with Purulia. Well, I think realistically, you probably don't want to run Purulia with this. But even if you did, let's just say, yeah. So basically, if you activate this card, you only get to activate one other Molchummy card this turn, which means you can activate 2 of this or activate this and Purulia. If you had 2 of this, then every time your opponent summons from the deck or extra deck, you would get 2 draws. If you have this plus Purulia, it means that every single time your opponent summons from the hand, deck, or extra deck, you would get 1 draw. So they both have their advantages. Yeah, I think Purulia is not really worth playing. I think you would just play 3 of this personally. But I think this card is good enough. I think this card will serve the express purpose of replacing Maxx C while being at least a tuned down version. Now, I can see some people saying that it's still too strong, and I can understand this, but it's a massive improvement. Now, basically, when you decide to play a combo deck, instead of having to tell yourself basically that it's like, oh, I just have to pray that I don't get Maxx C'd, you can kind of tell yourself like, okay, I need to prepare lines into this card that summon more from hand and graveyard than they do from deck or extra deck and still set up solid interruption. You think deck and extra deck should have been 2 separate Molchummies? I predicted that this would be it, by the way. I had a feeling that the deck one would be deck and extra deck. And I think it makes sense. I feel like the purpose of a card like Maxx C makes sense. So like I've never been like my argument was never like there should never be a card that does what Maxx C does. I've always been more of a fan of the idea that we need a weaker Maxx C. Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah, Moz, for sure there will be one for specialing from Grave and Banish. But the thing is, like, when you get to that point, like, if you're in your deck running 3 different or 2 different Malt Chummies to try to cover more zones, and you only see one of them in the wrong matchup, that can gimp your shit. That can fuck you over. That can fuck you even harder over if you're playing against a deck that didn't care about Maxx C in the first place, or didn't care that much, like, say, a Labyrinth deck, right? There's going to be a lot of deck building decisions with, like, different Malt Chummies, and there's going to be different Malt Chummies that are better for different formats. Yeah, exactly. It's so specific. It would need to be either a tier 0 format or, like, a format where there's so many people playing this deck, like a graveyard deck or a banish deck, let's say, that it's actually worth running a graveyard Malt Chummy. And I think that kind of like deck-specific building where you're doing a meta call is exactly what I want to see out of a card like Maxx C. I don't want, like, the mechanic of Maxx C is not something I'm completely against. It's just the fact that Maxx C is such a de facto standard card that you literally have no reason not to run it ever. And there's like, unless the format is specifically no one is special summoning at all, there's never a world where you're not playing Maxx C. But there could be a format at some point where this is not the Malt Chummy to play. There could be a world at some point where, like, it's the graveyard Malt Chummy, let's say. You know what I mean? Or maybe a world where you play both the hand and the graveyard Malt Chummy. Like, that is a possibility. This probably will still be the most popular Malt Chummy, but it really makes you think about deck building, which I like, because Maxx C doesn't. If they have it, I don't have the out, I lost. Like, if I'm playing any combo deck. So, for example, Mannadium has a lot of plays where they can special from hand. And now, like, before Mannadium, to set up 1 interruption, they'd summon like 4 or 5 times, give the opponent like 4 or 5 draws. Now, if you play your cards right, you can probably give 2 draws to get like 2 interruptions with Mannadium. I'd like that. I'm okay with that. And especially the fact that if you're running this, you're also risking a brick if you lose a coin flip. So for a best of 1 format, there's also downsides to run this card in the first place. If you want to go first, for example. Wait for the Malt Chummy boss monster. Draw 100 cards. I'm probably still going to be upset when I get hit by this card, you know? And it's most likely still going to be about as prevalent as Maxx C. If we're being realistic, vast majority of decks are summoning from the main deck and the extra deck. Like, so 100%, like, vast majority of the time, this card is run at 3 in the vast majority of decks. And most likely sees a very similar amount of play to Maxx C. I just think it's going to make the game a bit better to have a toned down version of it where you actually have interaction. You actually have plays that you can plan out into this card that are not just, I'll just not play and set my imperm and see if that works. Here's the reason that I think this is pretty fair. Or, like, it's as fair as a good Yu-Gi-Oh card can be. A lot of people, when they talk about Maxx C and they defend it, they'll say, you chose to keep summoning. They'll say you chose to keep summoning, but you didn't really choose to keep summoning, right? You get 2 choices with Maxx C. It's either you give your opponent like 15 draws, if you're playing a combo deck, I mean, or you don't play, right? A lot of decks, they'll set up 0, like, to give your opponent, to set up 1 interruption, a lot of decks need to summon like 3-4 times. Right, like it's an illusion of choice on Maxx C. This card, you actually can kind of make that argument. You can go like, you chose to summon all those cards from your deck and your extra deck. You could have learned a line or made sure to have cards in your deck that allow lines into this card, right? I'm thinking of a deck like Dinos, which is super rogue, right? Barely rogue, probably just playable tier right now. If I think of a deck like Dinos, it's like, oh shit, I can't summon with my babies. Every single summon I do from the extra deck is just gonna fucking give my opponent draws. But realistically, into this card with Dinos, you can do like Meteorist from hand. That's a really good summon. You can drop like Baron on the field for like 1 draw. You can search Ultimate Conductor Tyranno with Oviraptor as a way to, you know, just get a really strong interruption from the hand on field. You can banish Giant Rex from your graveyard to summon it from the banish pile. Like, I'm thinking of all the lines Dino has into this card, and I'm like, yeah, I can set up like 3-4 interruptions and give you maybe, again, like maybe like 3 or 4 draws. which I'm a lot more okay with. People are going to main deck this going first just to cross it out. That's true. I believe it. And also because we're in Mastered, we're playing a best of one format, you're always going to run this card. And you're just going to run the risk of having it be completely dead if you're going first. Like, the fact that you can stack 2 of these and get 2 draws per deck and extra deck summon is fucking terrifying. You better have plays into this. You better make sure that you have cards in your deck meant to facilitate lines where you can summon more from the hand and the graveyard. Because if you get 2 of these fired on your ass and you're not prepared for it, you're fucked. It's over. So I personally prefer that over a card like Maxx C that just kind of says like, you got unlucky, you didn't have Ash, they had the Maxx C, and you decided to play like Vanadium or Salamangreat, so you lost, sorry. You know, like, that really sucks. So I'm much happier with something like this, where at least there is ways to play around it, and it actually will affect your deck building in a way other than just running a bunch of outs. You'll actually change the strategy of your deck a little bit so that you can play into this instead of just hoping to draw the out. You know what I mean? It's much better designed, in my opinion, even though it is like a crazy card. I think to replace Maxx C, you kind of need a crazy card, like, to maintain the game design purpose, I guess, of why Maxx C is even legal, in, like, at least as far as I could think. Like, I mean, I'm not in their heads, obviously. And yeah, the fact that it only helps going second, you can't insulate yourself. Dude, how many times have I seen fucking tier limit boards, insane tier limit boards, that then go Maxx C after? And I'm just like, why am I playing this? Why am I playing this game? So happy. Yeah, the if you control no cards part is actually such a huge... I didn't talk about this part as much today, but that's also a really big part for me. I'm really wondering how many decks actually have amazing plays into this card. Like, there's nothing that's going to be more satisfying than playing, like, doing basically a full combo into this and giving your opponent, like, only 1 or only 2 draws. And basically setting up a shit ton of interruption just because you had a line prepared for it, or you had the right hand to do a crazy line into it. Like, that's going to feel so sick. Yeah, they put a lot of thought into this card. And, you know, when I made that last Maxx C video, I got into a really big conversation with someone that had some really well thought out arguments about why they think Maxx C is kept in the game. And a lot of it, like, you know, was a good counter argument to someone that said, like, there's no reason to have a card like it. But I think all his arguments would also apply to just a weaker version of Maxx C. You know, like, it gives a better chance to, like, new players, stuff like that. It gives a bit more unpredictability to the game, makes it so, you know, a card like Maxx C has a lot of advantages if you look at it from that angle of, like, oh man, the game is unpredictable. It's just, I didn't want it to feel like a horror game. You know, I'm cool with having tension, you know, being like, oh, I might not be safe, I might have to deal with one of these cards. Yeah, exactly. 100% balanced game isn't a fun one. Yeah, exactly. No good Yu-Gi-Oh card is actually fair. When we say fair about a good Yu-Gi-Oh card, what we mean is not so overtuned that it ruins the game, right? So that's how I feel about this card. To me, this card feels incredibly strong. It's like, it's crazy. It's an insane card. But they clearly put a lot of thought into making it, like, not ruin the fucking game whenever it's activated. And now there's only one thing left to talk about, chat. The Doom scenario. Do we even believe it's possible? Do we believe it's possible that they would release this and not ban Maxx C? Is that possible? Konami will always let me down. I'm more on the 2 side, actually. I really don't think you can design a card like this without the express purpose of banning Maxx C, especially when you think about how good they made this card. You can activate 2 of this card in a turn. That means you can activate this, you can draw into another copy, activate it again, and start drawing 2 from your opponent summoning from deck and extra deck. This would mean that if they had Maxx C legal at the same time, you would probably play both. I genuinely, as much as I know it's funny, like, to say, like, Konami this, Konami that, and I also have my, you know, my concerns with Konami and shit, and I'm not the biggest fan of that company, I still think it's real fucking humans at the end of the day making this game. You know, it's real fucking people. And I believe the express purpose is to ban Maxx C with this one. I know I said the same shit about Purulia, which makes it sound goofy when I say it about this card, because I obviously jumped the gun on Purulia. What I didn't realize is that the Maxx C replacement, if Konami has a game design reason that they want to keep Maxx C in, to replace it, they need a card that's actually good enough that everyone will want to play it anyway, right? And I feel like they did a really good job with this in that sense. It's so good, you have to play it, but it also makes the game so much less bad. I think +6, it's too high of a threshold. It should be lower. I agree. But I also think your deck should be able to not give it 6 draws. I think when this card comes out, if you're playing combo, you should be learning lines where you give where you set up like 3 or 4 interruptions or whatever your deck does while giving this like 2-3 draws. Like if you're summoning 6 times from your deck / extra deck while this card is in the game, you're playing your deck wrong, in my opinion. That's the way I look at it. Cards like this in Maxx C should not exist in the first place. No, I think there are arguments for cards like this. A card like Maxx C, the mechanic of drawing cards because your opponent is doing way too much on turn 1 in Yu-Gi-Oh! Makes sense to me. That's what I'm saying. Because like realistically, yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks are doing too much on turn 1. I think people agree with that. It's just that Maxx C is doing too much too. It's doing way too much as well. I like this. I really like this card. I think it's the drawing 2 is crazy, and it's gonna depend on the deck you're playing. But any combo deck now, you should be figuring out ways to not play into this. Like you should be able to have a strong board. If you're choosing a combo deck into this and you don't have a plan for this card, then you're just doing it wrong. You're playing wrong. You like kind of deserve to lose. Because for for Maxx C, you couldn't have that. It was literally just draw the out. For Maxx C, most combo decks couldn't have an actual game plan into Maxx C, other than just trying to minimize the amount of draws your opponent would get, but you would still get like not enough interruption. It's a band-aid. I think it's a lot better than a band-aid personally. I actually like this card. Summon from grave decks will be good. A lot of decks search add to hand and summon from hand, dude. Look, Fire King can play into this quite well. That's a great example, right? Anyway, honestly, you guys, I'm actually excited for this card. I just really, like, I really don't think that they can keep Maxx C and this card legal at the same time. I just hope they release it early in Master Duel. I would love to see this card, like, next month in Master Duel. I would love that. Just drop it early. Fucking ban the Maxx C, dude. Just drop this early. I'm super excited to play with this card instead. Hopefully we won't have to wait 6 months like Duel. That's what I'm saying though. No, we need this card as soon as possible. It's going to fix the game for me, honestly. If they ban the Roach. Again, this can be activated twice in one turn. That means that if you ran this in Maxx C, your opponent could literally be getting 3 draws per special summon. So I genuinely 100% don't believe they're keeping Maxx C with this card. I think they are making this card. This one, I know I said this again, so I sound like a fucking broken record, but this one expressly, it is made to replace Maxx C.